about the record of the Biden-Harris administration. When you look at inflation, it's up 19.4%. When you look at the southern border, it's 8.1 encounters. When you look at crime, violent crime across 66 major cities, it's up almost 10% at 9.6%. Is that a record that you can run on?
Well, certainly the Biden-Harris record of bringing crime down.
Sometimes I wonder if the MAGA hosts at the Fox propaganda network like being embarrassed and humiliated on national TV, because it's the only explanation for why they continue to bring on Pete Buttigieg, who every time he is on Fox, every time he is debating with a MAGA co-host, he absolutely shuts them down, silences them, and humiliates them live on air. Because their arguments are just so flimsy and disingenuous that Pete rips them apart every time. That is exactly what happened today. And something that I don't think Pete gets enough credit for when he goes on Fox is that he's not just arguing back and forth and obviously succeeding at it with the co-host or with the host or whoever it is he's talking to that day, is that Pete is also talking to the Fox News viewership. He wants to make sure that the cult of MAGA is being deprogrammed. And so he is speaking to them and bringing the truth so that he can start to move voters away from MAGA and towards Kamala Harris. And he did that in this interview in a really spectacular way. And there's a couple of great clips from it. But first, I want to check out this one.
Big showing for the president yesterday. They put him at 11 o'clock, though, last night. And a lot of people were saying, we love you, Joe. We love you, Joe. But he's no longer the nominee. A lot of questions, though, about it, because the New York Times writes that all the cabinet meetings that the president has been having have been scripted. They said 9 months since the latest cabinet meeting. Axios writes that he's only available for work between the hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then the Wall Street Journal says when it came down to the debt ceiling negotiations back in 23, Nancy Pelosi had to take over it. Is this the reason why he's no longer the nominee for your party?
It's funny. Sometimes I feel like conservative media and the Republican Party still think they're running against Joe Biden. He had an opportunity last night to demonstrate his achievements, right? The fact that he is responsible, for example, for the biggest run of job growth in the history of the American presidency. I think in any job, but especially the presidency, you want to be judged by your results. People want to nitpick the show flow of a cabinet meeting when we have had a country that, when he inherited it, was in a condition where you couldn't even approach the Capitol because of the violent assaults on the Capitol by Trump supporters. Not just getting our country moving on from that, not just getting our country back on its feet from the COVID collapse, but all of the other things that he did, including, by the way, delivering the infrastructure bill that Donald Trump promised and failed to deliver.
I know you got the talking
points. You want to go off
how
many hours he's in which office at what time?
But these weren't conservative outlets. I guess you can say the Wall Street Journal is, but
but you're a conservative outlet, and the first thing you're asking about is what time he's at a cabinet meeting instead of his achievement.
I just want to know, when did you guys know that the president was unfit to be on your ticket?
The president is not unfit.
So why is he not the nominee right now?
Because he did something that Donald Trump cannot comprehend, which is to put his ego aside.
I just want to get my question out. Why do you guys wait to the last minute to switcheroo after everyone saw? Can I just finish my question? And I'll let you answer, Mr. Secretary. But you guys waited until after the debate, where everybody in America saw what happened that day. And all of these reports are coming out that you guys knew behind the scenes, that cabinet members were frustrated, that he couldn't do the negotiations with Nancy Pelosi, and that she had to take it over.
What negotiations with Nancy Pelosi? When was
the debt ceiling in 2003, when it came down to the debt ceiling negotiations, that she had to take it over because he didn't know the talking point.
He won the debt ceiling negotiations. That's the point. You can go over whether he slips up and says one name when he wants to say another name, or you can look at what he's actually accomplished as president. It turns out he's really good at being president of the United States.
It really seems like Fox thinks that they're still running against President Biden. And yesterday at the DNC was such a great celebration of all of President Biden's accomplishments and the incredible historic job he did as president, certainly the greatest president of my lifetime. But Fox doesn't really know what they're doing in this campaign. And that's abundantly clear. They're still trying to bring up old lies about President Biden and use that as an attack on Kamala Harris. And again, it just falls so flat because we know that they don't believe it. We know that even if they do all the facts, point towards the opposite of what they're saying, that President Biden was a success. And that's completely clear in what Pete Buttigieg says in this clip.
About the record of the Biden-Harris administration. When you look at inflation, it's up 19.4%. When you look at the southern border, it's 8.1 encounters. When you look at crime, violent crime across 66 major cities, it's up almost 10% at 9.6%. Is that a record that you can run on?
Well, certainly the Biden-Harris record of bringing crime down compared to why crime went up under Donald Trump. And I often wonder, whether viewers of this network are aware that violent crime went up under Donald Trump. I think that deserves more coverage so we can ask ourselves why. And some of that has to do with policy, but some of that has to do with the message we send. When you have Donald Trump, an unrepentant, convicted criminal, running against a prosecutor like Kamala Harris, we have an opportunity to send a message about whether we're serious on law and order in this country or whether it's a talking point, whether it's just something people try to use as a political theme for partisan gain. You want to talk about inflation? Inflation went up in every country after COVID, but we brought inflation down in this country. Of course, the most important question, every election is about the future, right? And in the future, economists predict that the Trump plan will increase costs for American families by $3,900. So why would we go back to somebody's going to make it worse?
I don't want you to think that the crime issue or inflation issue is something new, because I've been covering it for years. I go out there and talk with voters every single day.
So you did cover the increase of crime under Trump.
Yesterday.
This is what I'm talking about when I say that Pete Buttigieg speaks directly to the Fox News viewer. He says, you may not know this, but under Donald Trump, violent crime went up, and it's fallen under President Biden because not only the policies at the national level, but Democratic governors, Democratic mayors, state and local officials are working to make sure that communities are safer across the country. And so I'm so glad that Pete isn't just trying to shut down the argument of the Fox host. He can do so many things at once, but he always then speaks directly to the camera, once makes sure that the viewers that are watching are having their minds changed. And that's what's so incredible about Pete Buttigieg, and a line that he said in that clip that I really like is law and order is not just a talking point. It's not just a slogan for Democrats as it is for Republicans. We want to make sure that the law is upheld, that we are protecting the fundamental freedoms that have been hard fought and won in this country. And that's the contrast between the criminal in Donald Trump and the prosecutor in Kamala Harris. And it's just so incredibly clear to see that Democrats actually want to work to make this country better, when Republicans just want to talk about it and point fingers and play the blame game. And that's incredibly clear in this clip.
You guys sent the cavalry in for your protection, but the people of Chicago don't see that on a day-to-day basis. What are you guys going to do to stop the bloodshed in our community?
Well, first of all, I was mayor of a city that faced that kind of pain. The toughest part of the job was dealing with gun violence, and the most heartbreaking part of the job was comforting or trying to comfort mothers who just wanted their child back. And the big question, I think, for politics, for policy, for media, is who is going to help them versus who is going to use them. The questions she's asking are the exact question any citizen should be asking, which is, when you take office,
what do you mean?
Are you going to keep your promises? Are you saying that
mother is being used?
I'm saying that mother is asking the exact right question. And the question is, what are you going to actually do when you come into office? Now, we're getting a lot of people speaking up about...
Just tell me what you guys are...
I'll tell you exactly what we're going to do.
What you've done to stop the bloodshed.
Actually confront gun violence. 90% of Americans, more than 80% of Republicans, think we ought to at least be doing universal background checks. But Donald Trump says no. The Republican Party says no. You talk about assault weapons, something that made a difference when that assault weapons ban contributed to the reduction in crime. I remember coming to Chicago as a kid. And by the way, even though some media only want to talk about the worst and most painful things that go on in our city, Chicago is a proud city. Chicago is an extraordinary city. But I do remember coming here when crime and murder was off the charts, and the work that went on to bring it down from those levels that we saw in the past, the work that's going on to save lives right now is something that deserves the backing.
There was over 20 people shot last week, 5 people shot over the weekend.
Then why would we elect leaders who won't do anything about gun violence?
Well, it's the Democrats that run the city. Name the Republican that is in charge.
All right, but this is really important, right?
No, tell me. One Republican in charge of Chicago.
Well, hold on.
Name them.
Listen to me, because not only did we have those levels of crime under for Democratic and Republican leaders, right? But if you'll try to cherry pick this for partisan purposes, you want to play that game?
It's not partisan.
We can talk about
As I told you, Mr. Mayor, they look like me, not you.
Yeah, and so is the case in Boston, where there is a much lower murder rate, and also a Democratic mayor. We can talk about how the murder rate in Mississippi is double what it is in Illinois. Now, I could go around saying that the murder rate in Mississippi is double what it is in Illinois because Mississippi has a Republican governor and Illinois has a Democratic governor. But you and I both know it just doesn't work that way.
I got you, Mr. Mayor.
We cannot have another 4 years of that, like we did during Donald Trump's presidency one, that Donald Trump bragged about doing nothing to prevent gun violence. He bragged about that. That's not a person that we can ever have in the White House again. We need someone like Kay Harris, who headed up the White House Department of Gun Violence Prevention. That's what she did because she cares. And we need that person in the White House. And I'm going to keep talking about how we need that person in the White House. And if you want to support that, you can make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave a like on this video. It really goes a long way. We are going to be continuing to cover the DNC on this channel. So make sure you stick around, and until next time, I'll see you soon.